It started like a scene out of a movie, except it wasn't fiction. It was real, it was personal, and it was about to change everything. "Get out! Security, escort this man out now." The words weren't whispered. They were hurled, sharp and public, slicing through the still air of Liberty Financial's flagship branch. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones dropped to silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hold its breath. At the center of it all stood a sharply dressed black man in his 40s, calm, composed, shoulders squared, his eyes locked on the woman behind the counter. Her nameplate read Sandra Miller, branch manager. Her tone read final. The man didn't raise his voice, didn't flinch. Between them sat a slip of paper, a withdrawal request for $75,000. His name was Marcus Johnson, and though no one in that room knew it yet, he was the CEO of the entire bank. Two security guards began to close in. They didn't ask questions, didn't verify facts. They just moved, like they'd done this 100 times before. Hands hovered over belts. Muscles tightened. All eyes locked on the man in the suit, Marcus, like he was a threat, a criminal, a disruption. But he hadn't made a scene. He hadn't even raised an eyebrow. What he had done was try to withdraw money from his own account. "I've simply requested to withdraw funds," he told the guards, voice steady. "I've presented all the required ID. I haven't shouted, I haven't threatened anyone, I'm a customer." But no one moved to stop the escalation. Not Sandra, not the tellers, not even Amy, the young woman behind the counter whose smile had disappeared the moment she saw the amount on the slip. Instead, Sandra stepped in front of him like a wall, cold, dismissive, self-assured. "We don't give cash to frauds. Or people like you," she said, her voice echoing across the marble floors. And just like that, the truth slipped out, not about money or policy or procedure, but prejudice, assumption, bias dressed up in business casual. Marcus didn't resist. He didn't argue. He just stood there, quietly absorbing the moment as if it were something he'd lived before. And he had, not just in this bank, but in boardrooms, airports, hotel lobbies. Everywhere his success seemed out of place to those unwilling to accept it. The guards reached for him. The crowd watched. Some recorded, some whispered, but no one intervened. Then, Marcus slowly reached into his jacket, and everything stopped. Sandra's eyes darted to his hand. The guard stiffened. The room tensed like a coiled spring. But Marcus wasn't reaching for a weapon. He was reaching for something far more powerful. His phone. What happened next would flip the entire institution upside down. And in just 7 minutes, the man they tried to throw out would be the one firing them all. Before the tailored suit, before the corner office, before the title that made people stand up straighter when he entered a room, Marcus Johnson was just a kid with ambition and a pressed uniform. 2 decades earlier, he had stood behind a different counter inside Liberty Financial. Not as a CEO, not as an executive, but as a teller trainee. A name tag pinned awkwardly to his crisp shirt, sleeves rolled just a bit too high, trying not to mess up a simple deposit transaction. He still remembers the first customer who looked past him, eyes scanning the branch for someone more experienced. He remembers smiling anyway. He didn't come from connections, no Ivy League legacy, no last name that opened doors. He grew up in a neighborhood where bank branches had bulletproof glass and payday lenders outnumbered ATMs. His parents worked double shifts. He learned to stretch every dollar before he learned to drive. What he lacked in access, he made up for in determination. Marcus worked, quietly, consistently. He memorized routing codes and loan terms. He volunteered for shifts no one else wanted. He shadowed senior staff during lunch breaks, and at night, after the branch lights dimmed and the vaults were sealed, he headed home, not to rest but to study. He enrolled in night classes, business theory, finance, public speaking. He earned his bachelor's, then scraped together scholarships and applied to Wharton for his MBA. While his classmates debated theory in classrooms, Marcus was already in the trenches, watching what real people needed from a bank, how they responded to kindness, how they recoiled from judgment, He climbed. From teller to loan officer to assistant branch manager, then regional director, then VP. In every role, he didn't just meet metrics, he shattered them. Branches under his leadership posted record profits. Customer satisfaction surged. Staff retention improved. He didn't manage people, he mentored them. People noticed, and yet, not everyone welcomed his rise. As he stepped deeper into the executive circle, the air got thinner and colder. He heard the whispers. Never direct, always coded. He's sharp, but will major clients feel comfortable? Are we ready for that kind of face in front of the brand? That kind of face they didn't say black. They didn't have to. Marcus didn't confront it, not publicly. He let the results speak for themselves. And still, when board meetings happened, he noticed he was often the only one not offered a drink. When he gave presentations, senior partners double-checked his slides like a teacher eyeing a student suspected of cheating, and yet he never missed. But there was one thing he couldn't ignore anymore. Over the years, a pattern had started to emerge. Quiet but insistent. Complaints, frustrations, not about policies but about treatment. And disproportionately, they came from customers who looked like him. Black, Latino, Asian, immigrants, blue-collar workers. So Marcus did what good CEOs do. He ordered a formal internal review, an audit of service ratings, teller interactions, complaint logs, branch-level feedback. The results came back glowing, almost too glowing, too clean, too polished, too curated. The branches passed. Numbers were strong, but the complaints never stopped. And Marcus knew what that meant. Sometimes the truth doesn't live in spreadsheets, he told his chief of staff. It lives in the lobby. He needed to know what the data wasn't telling him, so he made a decision that would shock everyone in the C-suite, if they had known. He would go undercover, no press release, no camera crew, no PR spin. Just him, stripped of title and privilege, walking into his own bank the way millions of others do every day, hoping for fairness, respect, and maybe, just maybe, dignity. The night before, he stood in front of his closet and passed over his suits. He chose a navy hoodie, comfortable, neutral, non-threatening. He paired it with dark slacks and clean sneakers. He trimmed his beard slightly, wore no cologne, no watch. His ID went in his back pocket, out of sight. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see the CEO of Liberty Financial. He saw Marcus from 20 years ago, and it struck him hard, how easy it was to disappear into that version of himself. Not because he'd lost anything, but because in the eyes of the world, some people are still unseen no matter what they've earned. At 9:15 a.m., he walked through the revolving glass doors of the downtown flagship branch, not as a boss, not as a banker, but as a customer. He took a seat in the waiting area. To the staff, he was just another black man in a hoodie, just another someone sitting too close to the check deposit machine. No clipboard, no briefcase, just a phone in his hand which he used not to scroll but to watch. And within the first 15 minutes, he saw what the audits never could. The unspoken hierarchy of value. A white man in an expensive suit didn't even have to wait in line. He was intercepted by a smiling staff member before reaching the counter. An elderly Asian couple, directed silently to the back. A young white woman in gym clothes got warm small talk and fast service. But a Hispanic man, in work boots, 10-minute ID check, and suspicious side eyes, subtle, predictable, damaging. Marcus kept still, kept watching, because this wasn't about proving he was right. It was about seeing with his own eyes what so many customers had tried to tell him for years. When he finally stood up and approached the counter, the teller, Amy, looked up at him, without the cheer she'd shown earlier, and the moment he slid that $75,000 withdrawal slip across the glass, everything began to shift. What they didn't know, what they couldn't imagine, was that the man they were preparing to humiliate was about to reveal exactly who he really was. At exactly 9:15 a.m., Marcus Johnson, CEO of Liberty Financial, walked into the flagship downtown branch of his own bank dressed like someone no one would ever look twice at. He wasn't in a power suit. No custom blazer. No Rolex. Just a simple navy hoodie, neatly pressed slacks, and worn-in sneakers. His hair was freshly trimmed, his beard slightly grown in, and his baseball cap pulled low enough to cast a shadow over his eyes, but not so low it would draw suspicion. To everyone watching, he was just another middle-aged black man. Middle, class, maybe a freelance worker, maybe someone cashing a check, certainly not someone with a high-limit account or access to the company's executive elevator. And that was exactly the point. Marcus didn't come to test the system from above. He came to feel what it was like from below. He sat in the waiting area quietly, phone in hand, not scrolling but observing. In less than 15 minutes, the pattern revealed itself. A white man in a tailored gray suit walked through the door. Before his heel hit the tile, a staff member intercepted him. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" No ID check, no clipboard, no wait. They walked him straight past the line, escorted like royalty. Then came an elderly Asian couple, arm in arm, speaking softly to each other. They approached the front desk and were quickly dismissed with a vague gesture toward the waiting area. "Please take a number." No smile, no eye contact, just a finger pointed toward the back. Next, a Latina in yoga pants and a cheerful demeanor stepped up. The teller behind the quick service window greeted her with a grin. "How was your weekend?" "Finished that Netflix show. Let's get this deposit taken care of real quick." It took 2 minutes, maybe less. Then a Hispanic man in work clothes, muddy boots, calloused hands, faded jeans, stepped forward. He held a check and ID. That's when the questions started. "Do you have a second form of identification? Where do you work? Can you step aside while we verify this?" Marcus watched it all. Not in anger. In recognition. This wasn't new. This was routine. This wasn't one bad apple. This was an unspoken policy, etched into the walls, embedded in every pause, every suspicious glance, every false smile, and he was next. By the time he stood up to approach the counter, Marcus had waited 37 minutes. Not that the place was busy, it wasn't. 3 white customers who walked in after him had already been served. He stepped forward and was greeted by Amy. Her eyes met his. The forced customer service smile she'd used earlier vanished. She didn't say good morning. She didn't ask how she could help. She just stared. "I'd like to make a withdrawal," Marcus said calmly, sliding over his state-issued ID and a completed slip. $75,000. Amy blinked. She looked at the ID, then at him, then back at the ID as if expecting it to be fake. Her eyebrows twitched. She didn't hide the surprise in her face. The number was too big. His hoodie was too plain. Her comfort level had dropped to 0. "That's a large amount," she said, her voice raised just enough to alert her colleague. Marcus nodded. "It's within the limit for my account type." Amy didn't respond. She turned, whispered something to Greg, the senior teller 2 windows over. He glanced at Marcus, then back at her. Then he stood and walked over, standing directly behind Amy, looming like a gatekeeper. His voice came, loud, on purpose. "Is there a problem here?" Not a question for Amy. It was for Marcus, to put him on the defensive, to escalate. Every customer in the lobby turned their heads. A ripple of attention spread through the room. A black man, a large withdrawal, a confrontation. The narrative was writing itself in their heads. Marcus didn't react. He calmly placed his bank card next to his ID. "No problem, I'm simply withdrawing funds from my account." Greg picked up the ID, studied it like a fake passport. "We've had some unusual activity on these kinds of accounts," he said slowly. "Need to be careful these days." He didn't say what "these kinds" meant, but the implication was clear. Amy said nothing. Her hands trembled slightly. She kept looking at her screen, not at Marcus. Greg leaned closer. "Amy, Pull up the account history. Let's see the patterns. Then came Jason, a junior employee with too much mouth and not enough sense. He sauntered over, name tag crooked, posture lazy. He leaned in and whispered something to Greg, but not quiet enough. Probably a money laundering case. Then louder, mocking, smirking, Jason added, "We just need to verify the funds are really yours. You get that, right? For your own protection." The words were coated in fake kindness. Real venom. Marcus didn't take the bait. "I've provided my ID, my bank card. I'm a long-time customer. I'd like to finish this transaction." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Jason called over Sandra Miller, the branch manager. She approached like a queen summoned to resolve a peasant's complaint. Her steps were brisk, her chin high. She didn't ask Marcus's name, didn't ask what the situation was. She simply took command. "Sir, I understand there's some confusion about your withdrawal." Her tone was condescending. "Practiced," Marcus corrected her. "There's no confusion. I'm withdrawing my own money." Her smile, fake and tight, never reached her eyes. 75,000 is a significant amount. "May I ask what it's for?" Marcus stared at her, silent. No white customer that morning had been asked that. Not the man in the suit. Not the woman with the yoga pants, only him. And the room knew it, but Sandra didn't care. She leaned in. "Mr. Johnson," she said finally, glancing down at his ID like it offended her fingers. "This amount doesn't seem appropriate for someone like you." There it was. The mask slipped. Not security protocol, not financial red flags, just pure filtered prejudice, served with a smile and a badge of authority. Behind her, Amy looked down at her keyboard. Jason chuckled. Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to shout. Because in that moment everyone saw what this was. Jason pushed further. "What's the story? Settlement money? Inheritance? Lottery?" Marcus didn't blink. "It's my money. I don't need to justify it." But Sandra was losing patience. "Sir, we have policies. If you can't explain this withdrawal, I can't approve it. Then I'll need to speak to someone above you." Her face flushed. And that's when she did it. "Security. Get him out. Now." The guard stepped forward, and the man who ran this entire institution was about to be dragged out of it. But none of them, not Sandra, not Greg, not Jason, had any idea who they were really dealing with. The grip on his arm was firm, professional but unyielding. One guard on his left, another flanking him from the side. Marcus could feel the weight of the room press in around him, the judgment in strangers' stares, the phone cameras capturing his humiliation, the smug satisfaction on Jason's face, and the quiet complicity behind Amy's downturned eyes. But Marcus didn't resist. He didn't yell, didn't plead, didn't flinch. Instead, with a grace that unnerved the very people trying to escort him out, Marcus reached into his jacket. Slowly, calmly, like a man who knew he had already won, even if the crowd hadn't figured it out yet. Sandra tensed immediately, her eyes locked on his hand. The security guard's fingers twitched toward his belt, ready for escalation. But Marcus wasn't reaching for a weapon. He was reaching for something much more dangerous to them. His phone. He raised it to his ear and dialed. The call connected in seconds. "Yes, Michael. This is Marcus Johnson. I'm at the downtown branch. I'm being physically removed from the premises for trying to withdraw my own money." The name dropped into the air like a live grenade. Michael. As in, Michael Roberts, executive, vice president, head of operations for Liberty Financial, one of the few people in the entire company with the power to override every protocol, and Marcus had his iDirect number. Sandra's mouth parted, her bravado suddenly evaporating. The guard's grip loosened instantly. Jason blinked. The room shifted. Something intangible broke in the atmosphere, the illusion of control they thought they had. Marcus kept speaking, cool and unbothered. "Yes, I'm being physically restrained, even after presenting ID. No aggression, just a withdrawal. Downtown branch, I'll hold. Sandra stepped forward, voice rising with panic. Hang up that phone. This is a private banking matter. You're being removed for causing a scene. If you don't stop, we'll call the police. But Marcus barely glanced at her. Yes, Michael, still here. They've refused to release me. Yes, that's correct. St. Dot. Calmness was terrifying. Not just because it was unshakable, but because it didn't match the scenario. Men being accused like this, especially men who look like Marcus, are expected to break, to beg, to explode. But he stood like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Back at Liberty Financial's corporate headquarters, alarms went off, but not the kind that beep, the kind that make executives stand. Michael Roberts stood upright in his glass-walled corner office, frozen. He knew that voice. He knew that calm. He knew that if Marcus Johnson, the CEO, was making this call, then something had gone horribly wrong. Get me every customer complaint from the downtown branch for the past year, Michael barked to his assistant, and lock the branch down. No one leaves, especially not the manager. He was already moving. His designer shoes pounded the marble floors as he rushed to the executive elevator, the one that didn't stop on the customer levels. In the conference room down the hall, board members sat reviewing quarterly projections when the wall screen flickered to life. Security footage, audio feeds, real time. The images on screen showed a man being restrained by security. One board member squinted. Who is that? Another whispered, his voice trembling. That's Marcus. That's our CEO. The chairman's face went pale. They're throwing him out of his own bank. Silence fell over the room like a burial shroud. Record everything, the chairman said grimly. Every second, every word, and bring legal up here now. Back at the branch, time ticked forward. 17 a.m. The double doors of the lobby slammed open. So hard they bounced off the marble walls, every head turned. Gasps rippled through the room. Michael Roberts strode in, not walking. Charging, not curious. Furious. He scanned the room, saw Marcus still flanked by security, Sandra standing stiff mid-sentence, Jason recoiling, Amy frozen. Then, he spoke. Release him. Now. His voice cracked through the lobby like thunder. The security guards immediately stepped back, hands raised like men exiting a battlefield. Marcus stood perfectly still, letting the moment wash over them. Michael turned, his eyes drilling through the staff. Then he pointed at Sandra. Do you have any idea who this man is? No one answered. This is Marcus Johnson, your CEO, your boss. You could hear the shock as it hit each person in sequence. Sandra's knees almost gave out. Her fake professionalism disappeared. Her face, once arrogant, now ash gray with panic. Jason looked like someone had just hit rewind on his entire life. He stuttered, lips moving but no words forming. Greg's face drained of all color, throat bobbing with swallowed regret. Amy's eyes welled up. Even the security guard, who had touched Marcus just minutes ago, looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. 10 seconds of silence followed. No one moved. Then Marcus spoke. Sandra, Greg, Jason. He called their names like a judge handing down a sentence. You're fired, effective immediately. He didn't yell. He didn't gesture. He simply stated it. Calm and absolute. The way only someone in full control ever could. Sandra gasped. Wait, I didn't know. Marcus didn't flinch. This isn't a performance review. This isn't a warning. This is the end of your employment with Liberty Financial. Not because you didn't recognize me, but because of how you treat people when you think they don't matter. Michael turned to the room. Footage has been reviewed. Disciplinary action will continue. Marcus stepped forward, now standing beneath the company's crest mounted behind the teller counter. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Discrimination has no place here, he said, voice clear, powerful, and neither do the people who enable it. And just like that, the illusion shattered. The masks came off. The truth, ugly and unfiltered, was now caught in high definition. On security cameras, in emails, in body language, and in the stunned silence of a lobby that had become a courtroom. Marcus didn't stay for applause. There was none. Just truth and consequences. What began as a simple withdrawal became a reckoning. And in just 7 minutes, the man they tried to drag out dragged them all into the light. 7 minutes. That's all it took for a man to go from being treated like a criminal to revealing that he was, in fact, the highest authority in the room. 7 minutes to transform an ordinary Tuesday into a reckoning. 7 minutes to expose, not just prejudice, but the entire culture of quiet discrimination that had long gone unchecked. They called him a fraud. They whispered, money laundering. They questioned why someone like him would need that much money. But they never questioned themselves. Not when they smiled at one customer and frowned at the next. Not when they escorted a white businessman straight to the desk while letting a Hispanic laborer wait in silence. Not when they asked Marcus why he needed the cash, a question no white customer had been asked that morning. But when the truth hit, when they realized the man they'd humiliated was the CEO of the entire institution, they didn't just lose their jobs. They lost their masks, because the cameras had caught everything. The tone, the posture, the smirks, the silence. And Marcus? He didn't lash out. He didn't scream. He didn't need to. His dignity stood taller than any title ever could. But he didn't stop at justice for himself. He wasn't there to punish a few bad apples and walk away. He wanted systemic change. In the days that followed, Liberty Financial launched an immediate internal audit. Every complaint from the past 3 years was pulled. Every staff interaction was reviewed. The footage from that Tuesday morning became mandatory viewing across all branches. Implicit bias training wasn't just recommended, it was required. Customer service policies were torn down and rebuilt from scratch, and Marcus personally appointed a new task force to investigate disparities in client treatment across all demographics. Liberty Financial would never look the same again. Because this story was never just about one man being mistreated. It was about every person who's ever walked into a building and been sized up, written off, or treated as suspicious. Just because of the way they look. It was about Black fathers, Asian elders, Latino workers, Muslim women, anyone who's ever had to prove they belong. Marcus didn't just speak for himself that day. He stood for millions who don't have the platform, the title, or the safety to speak up, and still face judgment before they even say a word. And now, it's your turn to speak. Has this story hit you like it hit us? If you believe respect has no color, type respect in the comments right now. Want to know what happened to Sandra after the firing? How Jason tried to fight back legally? And the moment Marcus uncovered a much deeper, more dangerous pattern inside the company? Part 2 is coming. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Because justice doesn't end with one firing. It begins when we shine a light on every room where silence has protected the problem. This is not just a story. This is a movement, and your voice matters more than ever.